Jotunheim, also known as Jotunland or the Land of Giants, is one of the 9 worlds in Norse mythology and is home to the Jotnar or Giants, ancient beings that often have conflicts with the gods of Asgard. This is part 3 of the series of videos we are making about the 9 Nordic worlds. If you haven't seen the previous ones, I recommend you to take a look. Jotunheim is often described as a wild and rugged land, characterized by mountains, forests, and inhospitable areas. This realm contrasts with the majesty of Asgard, or the ordered structure of Midgard. Jotunheim is imagined as a vast expanse of untamed nature. High mountains, some with perpetually snow-capped peaks, dominate the landscape, interspersed with deep valleys where shadows seem to hold ancient secrets. Dense, dark forests stretch as far as the eye can see, hiding within them ancient creatures and magics. Rivers roar powerfully through this rugged terrain, rising from hidden springs and flowing into deep, cold lakes. But it is not just the landscape that makes Jotunheim a formidable place. The atmosphere is charged with a primordial magic, an energy that seems to resonate from the earth itself. It is a raw and potent magic, different from the refined magic of other realms, imbued with the pure essence of creation and chaos. Life in Jotunheim is a constant struggle. Here, nature is neither tamed nor cultivated. It is confronted and respected. Survival is for the strongest, and the giants, with their imposing size and unmatched strength, are truly the masters of this savage realm. The Jotnar are ancient beings, born from the union of the first giant, Ymir, and the progeny created from his body. The relationship between the Jotnar and the gods is one of the most intriguing and complex facets of Norse mythology. Although they can be considered antagonists in many myths and sagas, it is not a strict division of good versus evil. It is more nuanced and intertwined. The Jotnar are often seen as forces of chaos and destruction, in contrast to the Aesir and Vanir, who are seen as defenders of order and civilization. However, this dichotomy is not absolute. The Jotnar also represent fundamental aspects of nature, landscape, and primordial forces. They are not evil by nature. They simply act in accordance with their essential nature, which is often in conflict with the interests and desires of the gods. Despite their conflicts, the gods and giants are connected through bloodlines and marriages. These connections underscore the idea that order and chaos, civilization and wilderness are integrated parts of the cosmos and cannot exist without each other. Odin, the chief of the Aesir gods, is an example of this interconnectedness. His mother, Bestla, is a giantess, which means that the greatest god of Asgard has giant blood in his veins. This duality within Odin reflects the constant tension between order and chaos in the Norse cosmos. Thor, the god of thunder and protector of the gods and humanity against the giants, is another example of this complexity. Although he is often shown fighting the Jotnar, his own mother, Jord, is a giantess and personification of Earth. Thor's strength and power, therefore, comes not only from his divine lineage, but also from his giantess heritage. There are many examples of marriages and relationships between gods and giants. Freyr, another Vanir god and brother of Freyas, fell in love and eventually married Gerd, a beautiful giantess. The interaction between the Jotnar and the gods is not simply one of enemies in opposition, but a complex dance of relationships, alliances, conflicts, and reconciliations. In Jotunheim, there are many halls and fortresses, but few are as prominent as Thrymheim, which in Old Norse means House of Thunder. Thrymheim, a fortress located in the highest mountains of Jotunheim, was the home of the mighty giant Thiazi. Thiazi was no ordinary giant. He possessed great strength and cunning, and had the ability to transform himself into an eagle. In this form, he once played a crucial role in an episode in which he tricked Loki, taking him to heaven and forcing him to conspire against the gods to kidnap Idun and her apples of youth. However, Thiazi's actions would cost him dearly. Attempting to escape Asgard with Idun and the apples, he was pursued by the gods. Although he initially seemed to have the advantage thanks to his speed and his eagle form, an ingenious plan led to his end. The gods lit a great fire on the walls of Asgard, and when Thiazi in his eagle form approached, the flames reached his wings, causing him to fall. The gods did not take long to finish him off. After Thiazi's death, His daughter Skadi, armed and enraged, marched towards Asgard to avenge her father. Instead of combat, however, the gods offered reparations. They promised to make her laugh, something Loki accomplished with one of his pranks, and allowed her to choose a husband from among them, though she could only see her feet to make her choice. Skadi chose what she thought were the beautiful feet of Balder, the most handsome god, but they turned out to be those of Njord, the god of the sea. The marriage between Skadi and Njord was complicated. While she loved the icy mountains, he preferred the coast and the sound of the sea. After trying to live in each other's domains, they decided to live apart. Skadi returned to Thrymheim, but with her marriage to Njord and her relationship with the gods, she became a goddess, associated with hunting, the mountains, and winter. Another legendary fortress is Utgard, perhaps the most famous fortress in Jotunheim. Located in the heart of Jotunheim lies Utgard, a fortress so vast and formidable that the very sight of it can intimidate anyone. This fortress is the domain of the cunning giant Utgard Loki, not to be confused with the Loki of Asgard, though they share a name and a talent for scheming. The most famous story associated with Utgard involves Thor and Loki, along with their two human companions. They traveled to Jotunheim with the goal of reaffirming Thor's reputation, which had been challenged by the prowess and trickery of the giants. After an arduous journey, the group finally arrived at a palace. Here they were greeted by Utgard Loki, who, after hearing their names and purposes, proposed a series of challenges to prove their worth. The challenges began with a seemingly simple race between Thialfi and a young man named Hugi. However, no matter how fast Thialfi was, Hugi was always ahead, proving to be uncatchable. Then Loki, proud of his ability to eat quickly, competed against Loki in a contest to see who could devour a row of meat in the shortest possible time. Although Loki ate quickly, Loki consumed not only the meat, but also the bones and the tray, besting the cheating god. Thor faced several challenges. First, he attempted to drink from a horn, whose contents seemed not to diminish no matter how much he drank. Next, he tried to lift a gray cat off the ground, but could only lift one of its legs. Finally, he challenged someone in Utgard Loki's court to a fight. He was introduced to an old woman, Ellie, who, to everyone's surprise, managed to bring Thor to his knees. After meeting the challenges, Thor and his companions left Utgard, carrying with them the weight of humiliation. But as they walked away, Utgard Loki revealed to them the true nature of their trials. Hugi, who was always ahead of them, was the representation of thought, immediate and unattainable. Logi, who devoured everything before Loki, was the embodiment of fire. The horn from which Thor tried to drink actually drained the ocean itself, Thor being responsible for the tides with every drink. The mysterious cat Thor tried to lift was actually Jormungandr, the serpent that embraces the entire world. And Ellie, who was able to subdue Thor, was the personification of old age, an adversary against whom even the gods cannot fight. With these revelations, Utgard Loki disappeared along with his fortress, leaving Thor and his company in the midst of an empty and deserted land. Another interesting story in these lands is that of the theft of Thor's hammer. One morning, Thor awoke to find that his prized hammer, Mjolnir, was missing. The hammer was not only an extension of his power, but also an essential tool for the defense of Asgard against the giants. The loss of Mjolnir left the gods in a vulnerable position. In desperation, Thor turned to Loki for help in discovering the whereabouts of Mjolnir. Using Freyas' magical cloak, which allowed him to shapeshift and fly, Loki traveled to Jotunheim to investigate. He soon discovered that Thim, a mighty giant, had stolen the hammer and buried it in the earth, safe from the gods. When Loki asked him what he wanted in exchange for the hammer, Thim revealed his price, Freyja's hand in marriage. Upon returning to Asgard with the news, Loki proposed a bold and comical plan. If Thim wanted to marry Freyja, then they should give Freyja to him, or at least make him believe they did. Suggested by Loki, and in the face of Thor's initial reluctance, they decided to disguise Thor as the goddess of love and beauty, using a veil to cover his bearded face and giving him feminine jewelry and clothing. With Loki disguised as his maid of honor, the two traveled to Jotunheim for the marriage. Thim, excited at the prospect of marrying Freyja, held a feast in honor of the wedding. During the dinner, the appetite of the bride aroused suspicion. Thor, still under his disguise, consumed an impressive amount of food and drink, which Loki quickly explained as Freyas' excitement and nervousness before the wedding. The climax came when Thim, eager to give his betrothed a kiss, lifted the veil only to recoil before the fierce gaze of Thor's eyes. But before the giant could react, Mjolnir was brought in to bless the wedding, and as soon as Thor had his hammer in his hands, he unleashed his fury, putting an end to Thim and the threat he posed to the gods. The Jotnar are beings of power, magic, and knowledge, and their relationship with the gods is complex. Some, like Aegir, are friendly to the gods, while others, like Thim, are clearly adversarial. The story of Aegir's Cauldron is one of adventure involving the gods Thor and Tyr. It all begins when the gods are enjoying a banquet in Aegir's hall. During the celebration, the Jotun of the sea mentions that he would like to offer a banquet to all the gods, but lacks a cauldron large enough to brew the ale necessary for such a feast. Hearing this, Tyr, one of the Aesir gods, remembers that the giant Hymir possesses a cauldron of adequate size for the task. So he and Thor decide to embark on a journey to Hymir's home to obtain the precious cauldron. Once they arrive at Hymir's abode, they encounter the giant's hospitality, but also his temperamental nature. During their stay, Thor is subjected to several tests by the giant. In one of these tests, Thor demonstrates his incredible strength by catching Midgard's serpent, Jormungandr, nearly pulling it out of the ocean, though he eventually escapes. After these events, Thor and Tyr reveal their true intention: to obtain the cauldron. Hymir, not quite willing to simply give it away, sets a condition. They will only take the cauldron if Thor is able to break a vessel the giant possesses, something no one has managed to do. After several failed attempts to break the vessel against hard objects, one of the women in Hymir's household gives Thor a piece of advice. He should try to break the vessel against Hymir's head, as it is the hardest material there. Following the advice, Thor throws the glass against the giant's head, and sure enough, the glass shatters. With the challenge overcome, Thor and Tyr take the cauldron and prepare to return to Asgard. However, Hymir and an army of giants oppose them. In the ensuing battle, Thor, with his mighty hammer Mjolnir, defeats the giants and secures possession of the cauldron. In the end, Aegir receives the cauldron and, with it, has the ability to offer a feast on a par with the gods, strengthening the friendship and bond between the Aesir and himself. More than mere antagonists, the Jotnar represent primordial forces, often associated with specific natural elements, such as mountains, storms, or seas. They possess an ancestral power, linked directly to the beginning of the cosmos, and magic that is often more raw and powerful than that of the gods. Moreover, their knowledge encompasses ancient secrets and mysteries that even the gods seek. With the onset of Ragnarok, the barriers between the 9 worlds begin to crumble, and the forces of chaos emerge with renewed fury. Jotunheim, which has always been in tension with Asgard, becomes the main bastion of these forces. The giants, beings of primordial and ancient power, gather under a single banner, ready for war. Led by charismatic and powerful figures such as Loki, the god of deception who has broken his ties with Asgard, and Fenrir, the monstrous wolf born of Loki, the giants become a formidable threat. Armed with rocks, mountains, and powerful spells, they march into battle, their fury fueled by old enmities and a desire for vengeance. The battlefield, Vigrid, stretches for 100 leagues in all directions. Here, the gods of Asgard, led by Odin and accompanied by brave human warriors from Valhalla, will face the overwhelming hordes of Jotunheim. This will be the last great battle. In the next chapter of this series, we will see the world of the dwarves, the primordial worlds, and the fearsome realm of the underworld ruled by Hel. Subscribe if you don't want to miss it. If you like and comment on this video, you make me happier than Loki playing a joke on Thor.